Alright, what's up, everybody? This is New Era Gardener, and we're going to be looking into some bins tonight. Today is Friday the 9th, and we're going to take a look at some bins that I actually have and do a little talking about these bins. We're going to check the moisture, see what they look like. As you see, there's a little bit of fungus growing there. I guess that's what it's called. I actually fed it some pumpkin. So I did change up my bedding a little bit. So it's basically peat moss, newspaper, and a little bit of compost. No manure in these particular bins I'm going to show you guys. So we're going to take a look at this. Let's see what the worms are doing here with this pumpkin. Yeah, we have some worms on the pumpkin. So we're doing good. I mean, this bin has good moisture. Yeah, they're happy with it. I'm not really going to be able to really mix up the bin as much as I usually do with that pumpkin there. So, good moisture. But like I said, this bin was done on 12/4, so it's not really a old bin, fairly new bin. But instead, I did get some pumpkin from one of my co-workers, so now we're going to start feeding them a little bit of pumpkin. So everything's actually looking good in this bin. This bin, like I said, was started on the 4th. And what I'm going to do, I think, is going to start to change some of the bins and kind of get rid of some of the bins because there's lower worm count in some of the bins. You know, might be 500, 800 worms in some of these bins. So those bins I'm going to condense. So this one here probably is one of the bins I'm going to add some worms to. That's why if you notice the bedding is probably only about 3 inches high with the pumpkin in here. So I want to give it an opportunity to actually add some more worms to it, get rid of the pumpkin that I actually have, and kind of go from there. So this bin is looking really, really good. So, but you know what I'll do is we'll take up the pumpkin. We can always, I want to mix up the bin really good. Yeah, there's tons of worms underneath that. I don't know if you can see the worms, but it's not a deep, deep bin. And actually, this will give me an opportunity to actually put the pumpkin a little deeper down in there so they can actually get to it. But there's plenty of worms in here. And I'm just trying to cover up the pumpkin, kind of keep the flies down. So, by kind of burying it down in there. But things are looking good. Got a couple little sprouts in here from actually using the compost. So, but good moisture, nice worms in here. So, I'm good there. I'm happy with that. And they seem to be very happy. Good moist bin. So, I actually have a meter that I actually use to actually check the moisture. So this is right at about 40% moisture. A little dry, but that's okay. As they start to break down the pumpkin, there'll be some additional moisture from it, and I'll just mix it up. But like I said, what I am going to do, I think we're going into the winter now, and this way I'll get a little bit familiar with what's going on whether the bins need to be changed over to using more peat moss. I did not put any alpaca manure in these bins that I'm going to be showing you. It's basically some compost and some peat moss and paper. So we'll go from there. But this one looks good. I'm going to show you guys another bin and we'll go from there. Let me get another bin. Thanks. Alright, so here's another bin. This one, let me check to see what the date on this particular bin was. This was on 11/20, so this one's a little bit older. And as you can see, this one also was done with using peat moss and some of my compost with the paper. So this one's a little dry, so I am going to water this one down. Right off the bat, I can feel that this is a little drier than it should be. But other than that, there's no issues with that. Plenty of worms. And when you're using a lot of the peat moss, I did put some bottom heat on these. I do have some heating mats. And this particular bin has peat moss, compost, and biochar. And the biochar is going to help you with your moisture content of not being so wet. But also it still could dry out your bin a little bit because it sucks up the moisture if it's not wet already when you put it in. If it's not pre-moistened, it's going to definitely pick up. I mean, and these are some nice, beautiful, fat worms. So they're looking good. But I am going to add some moisture to this one. So I just took an old Coke bottle, small Coke bottle, put some holes in the top, and this is how I water them. When it's this dry, I do it this way. If it's just needs a little bit more moisture, then I'll just use my sprayer. But this one I want to kind of get a little wetter than normal because this one is pretty dry. So I don't like to really run my bins too wet. So as you saw, I added some moisture to it. I'm going to let this one be, and I'll come back in another day or so, mix it up, and then if I need to add more moisture after mixing it up, then I'll add more moisture. But right now I'm just going to add a little bit of moisture. You don't want to overdo it. You can always add more moisture to the bin, but you can't take it out. So this bin looks good. This bin was not fed any pumpkin. Like I said, this one was from 11/20. So it's an older bin that I didn't add any pumpkin to. And I probably won't add any pumpkin to this. I'll probably feed it my turbo worm chow, which has some alpaca manure mixed in with it. It was pre-sifted to get all the finer stuff out, and use that. Let it dry to complete for a couple of days so it's no moisture in it, and then I mix it with the worm chow, and then I feed them that. They love it. They eat it. So, but because this is compost, there's still a lot of organic matter for them to chew on. So this one looks good. Let's go on to the next one. Alright, so here's another bin. Let me check the date on this one. This one was done on 10/3. I did feed this some pumpkin, and as you can see, there's a lot of growth here from that pumpkin. This pumpkin was set right on top. I am going to pick this pumpkin up. There are some worms that is inhabiting it, really moist underneath that pumpkin. This particular bin has those smaller worms in it that seem to always kind of clump together in a worm ball. So I'm just gonna stir it up, mix it up. This bedding is a little moist, which is where I want to kind of have this one. Not a ton of worms in here, not as many worms as I would like in this particular bin. And that's why I said I think I'm going to actually start to take some of these bins and actually kind of split them from 2 bins to 1 bin. I am going to vary this pumpkin. There's not, like I said, because of the amount of worms that is in here, I don't have it actually a lot of bedding. But over the course of probably the next month, that's what I'll do when bins become ready to harvest. I'll actually know which bins I need to add worms to by leaving them on one side or the other side of my rack, on my rack. And this is a bin that I'll definitely add some more to it. But as you can see, the moisture is good. Let's check the moisture content of this particular bin. Yeah, this one's at like 70% moisture, and that's kind of where I want to kind of run them, anywhere between 65 and 70 as far as the moisture should be for these particular bins. So and then like I do it anyway. After I sift my castings, I like to let them sit out for a couple of days to kind of lose some of the moisture. And that's what I'll do when these bins get ready. I'll just flop the tops open, let them sit for a couple of days, stir them up, and allow that moisture to exit. All right, so here's another good looking bin, but let me grab another one. All right, here's another powder puff sitting up here. And this one was definitely some compost. As you can see, there are some sprouts that are sprouting in here. This one's a little dry on top, but this thing, the mold that's getting on the pumpkin, yeah, this one's got nice worms inhabiting it. Nice worms in there. So that's why I have gloves on also. So this one has good moisture also. Yeah, this one has good moisture, just the same. But it's also, this corner's a little dry. But overall it's good. Nice worms in there. I think they're liking the better moisture also. I don't see the little balls that I was getting of these worms. But we're also going to check this one. I don't see any cocoons in here. But let's check the moisture on this one too. This one is about at 6% moisture in some areas, 70 in another area. Once again, about 6.5%, about 65%. So that's good. So, like I said, there are worms on this side. They actually went in. Oh yeah, there's tons of worms inside this pumpkin. So that's a good thing. They are enjoying the pumpkin. I am gonna just once again kind of make a valley and kind of bury it. And I don't, I guess you're gonna get the mold from the pumpkin You know, I don't know if a little bit of heat would help in keeping that down, but they don't seem to mind it. They just seem to eat it. I'm not seeing any cocoons in. Oh no, I think I spoke too soon. Oh, I got a cocoon here, so that's a good sign that we have a cocoon here. So that's perfect. You know, so but it has good moisture, so I'm happy with that. So I think that kind of did the trick for those little worms that I actually picked up from Uncle Jim's worm farm. They were smaller worms. They were real straggly worms. But every time I changed the bedding or checked the bedding in these two bins, the last two, they were always in a little ball in the corner. So with this better moisture, they seem to really be moving around a whole lot better. So I'm liking that. All right, let's grab another bin. Let's see where we're at with that bin. All right, give me a second. All right, so this is a bin from 11/24. It was fed some pumpkin, so moisture should be good. And we probably also have a furry ball, which we do. This one has a little bit of dryness to it. This was another bin that was the compost. It was pretty much all compost and a little bit of peat moss. So a little fly activity, which is going to be normal, but there is some moisture there. Let's check the moistures before I start kind of digging into it. So moisture is at about 60%. And it's funny, if I put it on an angle, it goes up to 80%. If I put it in straight, it's a little dry there. This little corner here saying 80%. This area here, once again, 80%. And it could be also because of the pumpkin letting off a little bit of moisture. I kind of hate this stuff on it. This one seems to be coming off. So it's mold. So I'm actually going to pull this mold out of this one. I was going to say, the good thing is I'm not getting any worms, but that one did have one worm in it. Doesn't seem to be any worms in this, so I'm just going to toss this away. It's just a mold. So let's take a look at this one. So I'm going to lift this one up, see what we got. Oh yeah, this one is even better. There's a nice, they're really happy under there. You know, really happy. And I think that's, like I said, where the moisture was saying 80%. This might have been a later one that I did. There are some cocoons in there. So at the same time that they're eating, they're actually mating. A couple pieces of that mold I want to get out. So I'm going to stir this one up also. You want to stir them up regardless. Kind of move the moisture around, but I mean, look at those worms. Look at these worms. They're nice fat worms. Pumpkin and worms. Pumpkin and worms, they just love pumpkin. I mean, they are lots of worms there. As you can see, those are worms. So I'm just going to stir this up just to kind of get the moisture a little bit better. But as you can see, there's tons of worms in there. There are some dry spots, but with moving this around, we'll actually get the moisture kind of moved around. But I probably will have to add a little moisture to this maybe in a couple of days. But I'm going to bury this once again, just like the other ones. I'm going to dig myself a little pocket here. And this is a big piece of pumpkin too, so I'm going to make a nice big area. Looks like this might have been the first piece of pumpkin I actually fed the bins. Excuse me. And as you see, I mean, that looks good. It's all compost and some peat moss and the normal minerals that I actually put in there. So that looks good. So I'm happy with that. So let's take a look at another bin and we'll go from there. All right, this was a recent bin that I actually did. There's a dead worm in there. This one's a little dry on top surface, but that's normal for it to be dry on the top sometimes. But let's see what we got here. This one was given no pumpkin. And like I said, this one was recently done. Some nice worms in this one. I want to say this is the bin that only has about 300 or 400 worms in it, but they're lively, as you can see. Nice, beautiful worms. They're having a blast with their bedding. And the only problem I see with this bin, it is a little dry. Is the only thing I see that's a problem with this particular bin is that there's quite a bit of flies in it. So let's see what the moisture content is. Well, it's about 55% moisture. But like I said, in some, it's about 65. That's about 70%. So this one, I'll also add a little moisture because this bin, like I said, was only done on the 4th of this month. So, but that's where we're at, guys. I appreciate you guys looking at the videos. If you get a chance, check the videos out that come up on to the left or to the right. And if you get a chance, view those. They might be older videos of when I first started out, or it might be something that I posted not too long ago. But just take a look at those videos if you get a chance. You'll see where I am and what I was using and my technique for doing the worms. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give this one some moisture. And put it away, and they'll go back in and they'll go down and they'll be all set to go themselves. All right, so I appreciate you guys watching the video. This is New Era Gardener. This is my wormery. Thanks for watching.